So now we have the Innovation Spotlight, and I would like to welcome, is it not the deadly sins of guest experience management, which sounds very exciting from the world that I come from. So over to you.
And how do I move this forward? Oh, next. Okay, that's good. Is there another? Oh, you're going to use that one.
Hello.
Right. Hello, everybody. Are we able to dim the lights back there? As we have quite a dark theme, we thought we'd play with it. We'll see. So we've gone for a bit of a Halloween theme. It is October, after all. Black and orange are not in our colour scheme at all, but marketing have approved it today, so we are now to use them. So we're going to talk about. Can everybody hear me? Okay? You okay at the back there? Yeah. So we're going to talk about the deadly sins of guest experience management, and I'm going to make the assumption that all of you understand your guest journeys. Kasia was just talking just now about architecting those journeys. You understand what you expect your teams to be delivering. So what we're going to talk about is the things that go wrong, where we don't find out the things that we ought to know about. So we've been doing this for about 20 years now. So we see the same things time after time. So Grace and I are going to introduce some of those. What we'll do first of all is just tell you a little bit about ourselves. So there's Suzi. That was a surprise.
I'm Suzi today, apparently.
Suzi's not very well today, so Grace is standing in. So, we wanted to talk about, we didn't want to do a pitch, basically, for you today, because you can have a pitch and come and see us outside if you want to. But just a little bit about us before we start. So we've been working in guest experience management. That's what the GEM in HGEM stands for about 20 years now. So we work with over 350 hospitality clients. We collect over 500,000 data points per year. We look after over 10,000 locations, and then we have a similar number, about 10,000 mystery guests that complete detailed visits for us as well. As you can see from the bottom, as well as mystery guest, we collect reviews from all the big platforms, Booking.com, Google, TripAdvisor, etc. And also very personalised surveys, feedback sites that we collect data from as well. So that's what we do. You can see kind of who we work with at the bottom there, or some of them anyway. We're going to go into our first sin. Now, because there's a bit of a Halloween theme to this, we're going to make it a little bit interactive. Oh, there go the lights, look. So a little bit interactive. If anybody wants to interrupt, you can. I know probably most of you won't, but if you want to, you can. But we're going to collect some pumpkins along the way. We've got 4 main sin areas. If you recognise any of these pumpkins, collect them. We'll top them up at the end. But Grace, let's lead us off on the first sin area.
Steve. So the first sin area, and I'd say is one of the most important ones and one of the hardest to kind of bring back around, is not getting buy-in from the teams. So you've got all this fabulous data, maybe you've even got some insights from the data. However, if you haven't got buy-in from the teams, whether that's on the ground or at the head office, then it's going to come to very little, all of those efforts. So the first pumpkin. So the teams are aware of measures and results, but they just don't care enough to strive for more. So if you fail to get the team engaged in the buy-in, as I said, all the efforts you put into getting that feedback and doing those insights are going to come to little. It's about helping them understand why it's important, and also as individuals how they can affect the guest experience and get insights from that feedback to help them, and so it's their role in the business as well. The second pumpkin is you don't take a cross-functional approach to improvements, and the metrics are siloed. So I'm going to ask, hands up, who's involved in sales here? Got a few hands at the
About
back.
five people involved in sales.
5 people. Well, sorry, that was a bit of a trick question with the Halloween theme. We're actually all involved in sales, really. Every department, whether you're operations, whether you are on the ground, whether you're food and beverage, we all have an input into sales. And that's why guest experience management and the feedback can work across all departments, and we can all benefit from that feedback. At the moment, it is seen as more of like a marketing task, but if we include it over all of those departments, then we can improve sales that way. And the third pumpkin. So there's no clear leadership and ownership structure for guest experience management. So it's really important to have someone who's going to drive the program within the business. It really helps, very dark now. It really helps build that culture, and also going back to the first point of getting the teams engaged and getting them to understand why it is important and how they can help as well. But having that figurehead to get the visibility of the guest feedback.
So think about who the figurehead is in your organisation. Who's that person that personifies your guest experience programme, and what sort of visibility have they got across the business? Okay, we're going to move on to the next one then, which is measurement without insight. So you've got measurements coming out of your ears. We've heard a lot on the last session about the proliferation of data and the different metrics that you can collect. But it's only any use to you if you can actually learn something from it, if you can gain some insight from it. So the first part of this is that you're collecting feedback, but you're not analysing it, you're not identifying the patterns, you're not initiating actions that come off the back of that. So a single piece of feedback or a single visit report can be powerful in its own right. But unless you start putting that together and starting to join the dots between them and seeing the patterns, then it's going to be quite wasted. So you can start to look at whether there are patterns by department, by location, maybe by the dish that somebody'd ordered. That's surprisingly one of the biggest influences, is for F&B at least anyway, is what dish people ordered. But what else do you know? Do you know something about the weather? Does that have an influence? About the occasion for people visiting, and so on. So you need to pull all of that out. The second one, I can't really see anybody now, but put your hand up in the air if you know what your NPS score is. Who knows your NPS score? Okay, there's a few hands there. So really important to know your NPS score. If people are not familiar with NPS, I think it's fairly common metric, but if you're not, come and see us afterwards. Net Promoter Score. But think beyond that score. It's a very common metric, as I say, but it can be manipulated. You can get yourself a good NPS score if you want to. But start looking behind that score. Because those of you that know your score, do you also know what's influencing it? What are the correlations that lie behind it? You can find that out by, very simply, once you ask somebody whether they recommend you or not, find out why. What was front of mind when they were thinking that? Categorize those things. Or you can draw correlations with other metrics. And the third one in this section is that teams know how they're performing in general, but they don't have any guidance on how to improve. So the delivery of a single guest experience depends upon contributions from lots of different departments: reception, housekeeping, F&B, leisure, etc., etc. But what we often see is that you'll see the sort of generic measures where everything's all sort of mashed together. You know how you're doing generally. But if you can structure your feedback and the way that you collect that in such a way that you can tease out a narrative for each individual department, then that gives you the tool that you need to help coach them and to help to improve what they're doing. So that's sin area number 2. Let's go on to number 3.
So sin area number 3 is focusing only on subjective data. As we know, every guest can be a potential reviewer. And don't get me wrong, subjective data is fantastic, whether you get it from booking.com, TripAdvisor, or Google. Sentimental feedback, you can find out trends and you can find out your reputation from there. However, as we know, quite a lot more goes into the guest journey than what we necessarily see on those platforms. So the delivery of a great guest experience, a lot of the time the guest doesn't actually know the individual steps that go into that. So the first pumpkin, please. So you look at every review, but you have no knowledge of whether teams are doing what they've been trained. As I just said, a lot of work goes into all the behind-the-scenes things, every little detail, and the guest might not pick up on all of it, but it is appreciated and is noticed when it isn't there. So if you're not measuring the individual steps that you put all that hard work into training, then we don't know whereabouts in the chain there is maybe a broken link and where we need to focus our energies on. So processes and standards are inconsistent, but the evidence is limited. So maybe you have a feeling that something isn't right. We have a feeling that consistency isn't there. However, if we haven't got measurements in place tracking each individual step, the objective feedback, then we're not going to know where, again, to focus our energies. And the third pumpkin is you implemented a new initiative, but it doesn't deliver the results you hoped for. So we've seen a lot of fantastic tech today, so maybe that's going to be one of your new initiatives, a new strategy, and you will find out through subjective feedback how people think and feel about that, maybe even how your team think and feel. However, if it doesn't work out, we don't have any evidence as to why that is, or it might be a part in the chain of this initiative that didn't work out rather than the whole thing. So measuring the objective feedback and getting it in, once again, you'll have the evidence where you can move forward and learn from it.
Does everybody succeed in their initiatives here? Is everybody successful? Who here has had a failed initiative recently? But nobody. Nobody's getting anything wrong. You're probably not trying hard enough. Okay. Next area then, fourth and last one, is not maximising non-room revenue. So when people think about hotels, often when we think about hotels, we think about the room. It's the core business. But it's surprising how often we find things that are outside of that core experience that are just not being measured. But they're significant opportunities to get additional revenue. Or even, we've heard examples today of staffless hotels where you perhaps don't have extra facilities. But if you think about how you can use those to improve the value that people are getting overall, they can be quite significant. So, you'll already have established these offerings outside of the room. It may be people's experience outside in the city, or you might have extra facilities that you can offer. We heard earlier on that a lot of people think about the on-site dining before they choose where to actually stay. So all of those things are really important. But think about how you can maximise the revenue that you get from those. Is there more that you could be doing with a local audience? We quite often find that restaurants and hotels are very quiet at certain times of day, whereas outside of hotels they won't be. Could you rebrand that in a different way? Secondly, you're not using feedback to shape the experience of those non-room activities. So don't forget about them. When you put together your feedback surveys, or whatever tool you're using to collect that information, think about how you can measure its impact, measure its success, because then you can, that's going to be a lot more insightful than trying to sort of sift your way through a load of reviews. And the last one in this area is that you don't measure, and therefore you don't influence, how good you are at upselling. So we have heard it said that we don't do upselling, it's not what we do. Well, actually, it's really important. And whenever we've measured this, we found that venues that are better at upselling tend to have better NPS as well. And it isn't just about selling stuff that people don't need, it's about enhancing their experience, but it also feeds straight through into your revenue as well. And however good you think your teams are at upselling, they almost certainly aren't, because it's one of the weakest things that we see consistently whenever we measure it. But as we've been saying throughout the rest of it, if you measure it, then you can manage it. So measure it, communicate it, incentivize it, and it will start to happen. So that's our main sort of areas. These are the things that we just come across. We did a little kind of research in the office the other day, and these were the things that came up time after time. If anybody wants a quick one-slide overview and you want to take a quick picture, you can see here how you can take each one and you can move from a pumpkin to a halo on the right-hand side. It's a quick summary of all the things that we've just talked through there. And now we're going to see how we did. So look at all those pumpkins, see how many you got. We're not going to name and shame anybody.
But if you were 0 to 4 pumpkins, then you are practically an angel. Well done. We've got 5 to 8 pumpkins. A bit of a prayer and elbow grease will make a saint of you yet. And then we've got sinners, 9 to 12 pumpkins. Oh dear, call us for an exorcism. And you can find us just outside in the booth.
Side in just a moment, if you want to come and have a chat with us, there's a little image of our platform there, which is where we bring together all of the surveys, the reviews, and the audits. We'll help you to identify how you're performing, how you compare with others, how you're trending, and where your opportunities are, and what people are saying about you. It's all in one place. But thank you very much for listening, and that is the end of our presentation.